What's up, Multiverse of Mayhem fans? Today we're taking a break from the MCU to talk about the OG superhero, the one who started it all. Superman, the Man of Steel, the Last Son of Krypton, the big blue Boy Scout. He's been around for nearly 90 years, and somehow, no matter how many times culture changes, no matter how many Superman is irrelevant, think pieces get written, he keeps coming back. Superman has died and returned. He's been rebooted, reimagined, deconstructed and reconstructed. He's been too powerful, too boring, too perfect and too outdated. But every single time someone declares Superman dead, literally or figuratively, he flies back stronger than ever. So today we're exploring Superman through the decades, from his birth during the Great Depression to his literal death in the 90s to his modern interpretations. We're going to figure out why this 86-year-old character refuses to stay down. Why does Superman always come back? Let's find out. 1930s and 1940s. Superman's origin isn't just the story of Kal-El escaping the destruction of Krypton. It's the story of two Jewish teenagers from Cleveland creating hope during America's darkest hour. The real origin story, June 2nd, 1932. Mitchell Siegel, a 60-year-old Jewish immigrant, died of a heart attack during a robbery of his second-hand clothing store in Cleveland, Ohio. His 17-year-old son, Jerry Siegel, was devastated. With his best friend Joe Shuster at his side, Jerry poured his grief and his dreams into creating a character, initially as a villain in a 1933 short story called The Reign of the Superman, but Jerry reimagined this superpowered being as a hero. Someone who could protect the weak, someone who could have saved his father. By 1938, when Action Comics' #1 hit stands, Superman had fully formed, an immigrant from a destroyed world, raised with Midwestern values, using his incredible powers to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. America was deep in the Great Depression. Unemployment was around 25%. People were losing their homes, their savings, their hope. And here comes this character who literally could not be beaten, who stood up to corrupt businessmen and criminals, who protected the little guy against impossible odds. World War II, America's champion. When America entered World War II, Superman's role evolved. Now, he wasn't just fighting for the oppressed, he was fighting fascism. Comic covers showed Superman punching Hitler, capturing Japanese generals, and selling war bonds to children. He became unambiguous patriotic propaganda, embodying the Allied war effort. The Fleischer Studios' animated shorts from this era are fascinating, that they're gorgeously animated, but also incredibly blunt about Superman as an American weapon against the Axis powers. He's shown destroying Nazi tanks, stopping Japanese spies, and literally wrapping enemies in American flags. Superman comics during this era didn't shy away from the war's darkness either. One particularly powerful story had Superman encountering a Nazi in a lifeboat who spouts Aryan supremacy rhetoric. Superman subtly references his own alien origin and his creator's Jewish heritage by calling himself non-Aryan while dismantling the Nazis' ideology. The character became so synonymous with American values that activist Stetson Kennedy infiltrated the KKK, leaked their secrets to the Superman radio show writers, and they created episodes where Superman battled the Klan. Those episodes dealt a massive blow to the KKK's reputation and recruitment. Superman wasn't just entertainment, he was a weapon against hate. Why he worked? Superman in this era worked because he was aspirational during a time of despair. When the world felt darkest, here was someone who couldn't be corrupted, couldn't be defeated, and would always do the right thing. That's not boring when you're literally worried about whether you'll eat tomorrow or whether your country will survive a world war. The Silver Age, too perfect for his own good. The 1950s brought huge changes to Superman, and not all of them were good. This is where Superman became the version people love to mock, overpowered, goofy, and stuck in perpetual wholesome suburban fantasy. The comics code and sanitization. After World War II ended, comic books started exploring darker themes. Horror comics, crime comics, and even superhero comics got grittier. This led to the 1954 Senate hearings led by Senator Estes Kefauver, who basically blamed comic books for juvenile delinquency. The result was the Comics Code Authority, strict censorship guidelines that neutered comics for decades. Superman, already a Boy Scout, became aggressively wholesome. Under editor Mort Weisinger from 1941 to 1970, Superman's world became incredibly elaborate but also incredibly safe. This era introduced the Fortress of Solitude, Supergirl, Krypto the Superdog, Bizarro, different colours of kryptonite, the Phantom Zone, and an incredibly complex Kryptonian mythology. But it also made Superman kind of boring. His powers expanded to ridiculous levels. He could sneeze away solar systems. He could travel through time at will. He could do basically anything the plot needed. The stories became what-if gimmicks. What if Superman turned into a baby? What if he had a pet monkey? What if Lois Lane got superpowers for a day? The George Reeves Adventures of Superman TV show, 1952 to 1958, solidified this era's Superman in the popular consciousness. Friendly, heroic, and completely without edge. The iconic image of bullets bouncing off his chest while he stood there with his hands on his hips. That's from this show. The Super Friends era. By the 1970s, this wholesome Superman hit its peak, or its nadir, depending on your perspective, with the Saturday morning cartoon Super Friends, 1973 to 1985. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman and Aquaman, along with teenage alien Wonder Twins and their pet space monkey, fought crime with absolutely zero stakes or conflict. This Superman didn't punch anyone. He just took problems away and set good examples. He represented an America that wanted to forget Vietnam, Watergate and social upheaval and pretend everything was simple and pure. Why people rejected this version? By the 1960s, this Superman was already losing relevance. Marvel Comics launched with characters like Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, heroes with real problems, internal conflicts and moral complexity. These new heroes felt like real people with powers. Superman felt like a walking propaganda poster. Comic sales for Superman plummeted in the 60s and 70s. A whole generation of readers found him corny, outdated, and impossible to relate to. How do you tell meaningful stories about someone who can do anything, fears nothing, and never makes mistakes? And this is when people started saying Superman was irrelevant, too powerful, too perfect, too boring for modern audiences. DC tried to modernize him in the Bronze Age by giving him more internal conflict and tackling social issues, but the damage was done. The modern age, death, rebirth, and reimagining. In 1986, DC Comics did something radical. They rebooted their entire universe with Crisis on Infinite Earths, and Superman got the most significant makeover of any character. John Byrne's Man of Steel, 1986, writer and artist John Byrne was tasked with modernising Superman for the contemporary era. His changes were revolutionary. Superman's powers were scaled way back. He couldn't sneeze away planets anymore. Clark Kent became the real identity, not just a disguise. Superman was the costume Clark wore, not the other way around. Lex Luthor was completely reimagined from a mad scientist to an evil billionaire businessman, basically Trump before Trump. Lois Lane was transformed from a damsel in distress to a tough, independent reporter. The Kents, Ma and Pa Kent, stayed alive as Clark's emotional anchors and moral compass. Krypton became a cold, sterile society to contrast with Earth's warmth. These changes emphasised Superman's humanity over his alienness. Byrne wanted readers to see Clark as a kid from Kansas who happened to have powers, not an alien pretending to be human. This reboot was massively successful and set the template for Superman for the next 2 decades. Suddenly Superman stories could have emotional stakes again because he wasn't omnipotent and he had people he could lose. The death of Superman, 1992, the biggest event in comics. Now we get to the moment that changed everything, not just for Superman, but for all of superhero comics. In 1992, DC Comics did the unthinkable. They killed Superman, and they didn't do it quietly. When news broke that DC planned to kill an American cultural icon, the mainstream media went insane. This made the front page of Newsday, got covered on CNN, NPR ran segments, late-night talk show hosts wore Superman armbands. People who had never read a comic book in their lives suddenly cared. The final issue, Superman number 75, ended with these haunting words, "For this is the day that a Superman died." The issue sold over 6 million copies, making it the best-selling comic book issue of 1992. Some stores had lines around the block, one per customer limits. It brought in $30 million on its first day. Here's what made it brilliant. DC didn't just kill Superman as a gimmick. The follow-up story, Funeral for a Friend, showed the emotional devastation his death caused. We saw Lois Lane calling Ma and Pa Kent, who had to watch their son die on national television. We saw Pa Kent have a heart attack while trying to bury mementos of his boy. The story explored what the world would be like without Superman. Other heroes tried to fill the void. 4 different characters, Cyborg Superman, the brutal Last Son of Krypton, Steel, and a young Superboy, emerged claiming to be Superman, each representing a different aspect of what Superman meant. Why people thought he'd stay dead. Here's the crazy thing. A lot of people genuinely believed Superman was dead forever. The mainstream media reported it as if it were permanent. People bought multiple copies of Superman number 75, thinking it would be worth thousands someday. Spoiler, it wasn't. The death of Superman did 2 things. First, it proved Superman still mattered. People cared. The world mourned. His absence was felt. Second, it created a template that comics still follow today. Kill a major character, get media attention, bring them back a year later, repeat. Some see this as cynical, and honestly, it kind of is. But it also proves something important. Superman's appeal isn't about being invincible. It's about what he represents. When he was gone, people realised what they'd lost. The death of Superman also inadvertently helped create the comic market crash of the mid-90s. Speculators bought up copies thinking they'd be worth a fortune, and when they weren't, the bubble burst. But that's a story for another video. Modern interpretations finding relevance today. So how does Superman stay relevant in the 21st century? How does an 86-year-old character compete with morally complex anti-heroes, gritty, realistic storytelling, and an increasingly cynical culture? The answer, by remembering what made him great in the first place. All-Star Superman 2005, the definitive version. Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman is widely considered the definitive Superman story. The premise is heartbreaking. Superman is dying from solar radiation poisoning and only has limited time left. Each issue explores a different aspect of Superman's character as he completes his final tasks. What makes it brilliant is that it embraces everything about Superman. The Silver Age goofiness, the emotional depth, the heroism, the humanity. It doesn't try to make Superman dark or edgy. It makes him genuinely good and shows why that matters. Morrison understood something crucial. Superman isn't boring because he's powerful. He's inspiring because he chooses to be good when he could be anything else. Smallville, 2001 to 2011, the longest Superman story. The WB Smallville became the longest-running comic book TV series in primetime history. 10 seasons following Clark Kent from high school through his early years as a reporter. The show's no flights, no tights rule frustrated fans, but it allowed them to explore Clark's humanity and his relationships in unprecedented depth. Smallville made Superman relatable again by focusing on the kid from Kansas, trying to figure out who he was meant to be. It also introduced Chloe Sullivan, an original character so popular she got comic book spin-offs. Christopher Reeve, the template. We can't talk about modern Superman without acknowledging Christopher Reeve. His 1978 Superman movie is still considered the gold standard. Reeve did something incredible. He made you believe Superman and Clark Kent were both real. His Clark was goofy and awkward, but you saw glimpses of Superman's nobility shining through. His Superman was powerful but never cruel, confident but never arrogant. You'll believe a man can fly was the tagline, but the real achievement was making you believe in the character. That template influenced every Superman adaptation that followed. The Henry Cavill debate, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, 2013, and subsequent DCEU appearances divided fans sharply. Snyder's Superman was brooding, conflicted, and struggled with his place in the world. Some loved this grounded, alien approach. Others felt it missed the point entirely. The criticism wasn't about Cavill's performance. Most agree he looks perfect and had potential. It was about the characterization. Snyder's Superman snapped necks, caused massive collateral damage, and seemed perpetually miserable. Critics argued that a Superman who doesn't inspire hope isn't really Superman. But defenders argued this was a realistic take. How would the world actually react to an all-powerful alien with fear, suspicion, and attempts to control him? It's a valid interpretation, just not what traditional Superman fans wanted. Superman and Lois, 2021 to present, the CW's Superman and Lois brought something new, showing Superman as a husband and father, Clark and Lois dealing with teenage sons, mortgage payments, and work-life balance while saving the world. It sounds ridiculous, but it worked because it emphasized Superman's humanity. My Adventures with Superman, 2023, the new animated series takes Superman back to basics. Young Clark and Lois at the Daily Planet falling in love, figuring out heroism. It's bright, optimistic, and completely earnest in its love for these characters. No cynicism, no deconstruction, just pure superhero storytelling. So after 86 years, countless reboots, one literal death, and being declared irrelevant approximately every decade, why does Superman always come back? Number one, he adapts while staying true to his core. Superman's costume has changed, his power levels have fluctuated, his supporting cast has expanded, but the core remains an immigrant who uses his gifts to help others. A small-town kid who does the right thing even when it's hard. Someone with godlike power who chooses to be human. Number two, he represents something culture always needs. Every generation thinks it's too cynical for Superman, too sophisticated, too aware of complexity and moral ambiguity, and every generation is wrong. We need characters who are unambiguously good, not perfect. Superman makes mistakes, deals with loss, struggles with impossible choices, but good. Someone who will always try to save everyone, even the villain, someone who believes in redemption. Number three, the immigrant story never gets old. Superman is the ultimate immigrant story, and that resonates differently in every era. In the 1930s, he represented Jewish immigrants seeking acceptance. In the post-9/11 era, he represented fears about the other and whether they could be trusted. Today, he represents questions about belonging, identity, and what it means to be American. Number four, he's mythology. Superman has transcended being just a character. He's cultural mythology now, right alongside Hercules, King Arthur, and Robin Hood. Everyone knows the S-Shield. Everyone knows faster than a speeding bullet. Everyone understands what Superman means as a metaphor. You can deconstruct him, Watchmen's Dr. Manhattan, subvert him, The Boys Homelander, or reimagine him endlessly, but you can't kill mythology. It just evolves and returns in new forms. Finally, we want to believe ultimately Superman comes back because we want him to. Even people who claim he's boring, who say they prefer Batman or Spider-Man or gritty anti-heroes, somewhere deep down, they want to believe a man can fly. They want to believe someone with ultimate power would choose to be kind. Superman is an act of faith. Faith that humanity can be better. Faith that power doesn't have to corrupt. Faith that even in the darkest times, someone will stand up for what's right. And as long as we need that faith, Superman will keep coming back. And you know what? In 10 years, we'll have this same conversation, because that's what we do with Superman. Every decade, we declare him dead or irrelevant or obsolete, and every decade he proves us wrong. Superman is 86 years old, and he's not slowing down. He's been through the Depression, World War II, the Cold War, the Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam, 9/11, and every cultural shift in between. He's been campy and serious, godlike and human, alien and American. And I'm sure that he'll be here in another 86 years, because as long as people need hope, as long as we want to believe we can be better, as long as we look up at the sky and wish someone was watching over us, Superman will always come back. If you like watching deep dives like this one, be sure to subscribe for more. Don't forget to comment and drop a like if you enjoyed this video all about Superman. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.